All right, call to order the Rockport Select Board meeting of February 22nd, 2021. We're still operating under the rules regarding the pandemic. The public knows from the agenda how to send a message for public comment during the course of the we certainly have a quorum. Mark Kelly may be late or not joining us. So we'll go ahead. The first item on the agenda is the town manager's report / update.
Yes, so I'll just briefly cover the written report. If you guys have any questions about that, let me know. Then I'll have one item to add at the end. We had 2 donors that donated the purchase and installation of a propane boiler for the library. And this will basically hook up to the radiant heat that's in the lower level floor, as well as the children's room floor, which will be certainly a great improvement. It didn't need it, but it's just one of those things that will help the library heat and be more comfortable space. So we certainly appreciate the generous gift from those 2 donors. I spent I think it was last Thursday with Maine Municipal Association's insurance representative for a safety visit. These are done occasionally on a rotating basis in different buildings of the town, just to make sure that we have our safety plans in place, make sure there aren't any hazards anywhere in the buildings, to update the buildings themselves if we've made any improvements, such as the public safety building with the vehicle exhaust removal systems and the new radio tower. So I spent half of Thursday with him. I'm pleased to say we had no negative findings from that report, and he inspected the town office building and the public safety building on this visit. He'll be back in the summer to inspect the public works garage and various buildings at the public works facility. We also opened investment proposals last Friday the 12th. They were due back, I think at either noon or 2 o'clock that day. We received 8 proposals, which is a pretty good number. And this is to manage the trust funds that we have currently invested with Bar Harbor Bank and Trust. The next step is for the investment committee to review these and provide a recommendation. And then that'll come to the select board for action. We did receive a payment in lieu of taxes from Coastal Mountains Land Trust in the amount of $750. Carrie Leichman, the assessor, finance director Megan Brackett, and I met with officials from the Samoset and from Ocean Properties to further our conversation around implementing the taxation of timeshares ordinance, which the board approved I think it was last spring. Their system is not set up well to be able to handle accepting payments of taxes and to bill those out to their timeshare owners. So we're in discussions with them to figure out how we can make this happen so that number one, either we're not sending out those tax bills, or number 2, we're being compensated for it. So we're in discussions now with that. It was a friendly conversation, and I think we'll probably come up with a solution that works for both parties. I have received the draft plans for the proposed possible new harbor parking lot on the hillside by the pump station. Reviewed those again today with the engineer, Bill Lane of Gartley and Dorsey, as well as Mike Young, Public Works Director. Parking Task Force, we talked about those as well today in a meeting. And we'll be moving forward with that with discussion with the select board. I'm not sure if it'll be on March 8th or not at this point, but we will be looking at those moving forward. One other topic to bring up that's not in the written report is that the town office did receive a petition in regards to the short-term rental ordinance that was tabled at your last meeting. I'm just going to read the petition. Essentially at the top says, "We, the undersigned residents of Rockport, request that the select board place the ordinance regarding short-term rentals on the June ballot, thereby giving all town residents a chance to vote on the matter." I will say that there are 34 signatures on the petition. It has not been validated by the town clerk, but that certainly is well below any number that would be needed to force the board to put the question on a ballot. And I looked at you'll remember when the board was talking about the short-term rental ordinance, we had a timeline that we were discussing so that it could go through the process, including the planning board for any potential land use ordinance language amendments. And with it being tabled at your last meeting on February 8th, there really isn't time for the process to start back up again. We had canceled the February 16th workshop to hear public comments on the third draft. And then we were scheduled to work on the ordinance for the next couple of weeks after that, with a final draft, if you will, to come to the board on March 8th. Keeping in mind that that was all contingent upon the fact that we would have assumed that it would have been approved by the select board on March 8th, because we have to place advertisements in local papers for public hearings and the like with the planning board, actually the morning of March 8th. So that's why essentially there isn't enough time to revise the ordinance, get it into the process, get it approved, and have public hearings the way that we need to by state statute. So I just want to throw that out there.
Yeah, so I just wanted to summarize a couple of things. So I think that, as you said, that's not, the petition doesn't reach the number of signatures that would require us to put it on the ballot. So it's up to the select board, aside from time issues, it's up to the select board as to their discretion as to whether to do that. Plus, we've gotten a few emails in addition, indicating people's displeasure with the fact that we have tabled it. In fact, one person suggested that we obviously don't care about the citizens' views because we're not putting it on the ballot. So, we're obviously roundly criticized for doing whatever we do. So, and in terms of the timing, I'll call on you next, Mark, sorry, Jeff. And so as far as the timing, I think I just wanted to clarify, we didn't have to have a workshop. Nothing requires us to do that. And nothing requires us to come up with yet another, amendment. But I think the real key here is, as Bill said, that we would have had to have sent out the notice on March 8th in the morning. And we wouldn't even be voting on this, we already voted on it, but if we were to vote to reconsider our last action, it wouldn't even be until 5:30 on March 8th. And the notice would have already had to have gone out that morning. So we just literally ran out of time. Jeff, you wanted to say something?
Right. Yeah, because we can't discuss it tonight because it's not an agenda item, I would ask that we include on the March 8th agenda for the select board a discussion around the possibility of putting a non-binding referendum question on the June ballot that would basically poll the taxpayers and our voters to determine if there is an interest in the overall concept of a short-term rental ordinance for the November ballot.
So in other words, we would request that for the March 8th agenda that Bill and I and Denise are putting together the agenda, that we would include a discussion about a non-binding ordinance on the June ballot. I take it that you're saying just to take the temperature of the town in terms of whether they want to see an STR ordinance or not in the future. Is that right?
Yes, it's not a non-binding ordinance. It would be a non-binding question.
Thank you. Non-binding question ballot is what I meant.
Yeah, and even quite different in substance, more like what we did with the fireworks.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yes.
Do you want to see STR registration ordinance? Do you want to see the board put in STR registration ordinance on the ballot in the future or something like that? Yes or no?
Yeah, we could work on the wording at a later date, but again, because it's not an agenda item tonight, I think we ought to put it on the March 8th.
Well,
Yeah.
Denise, what did you say?
I said, I like that idea. I mean, I think we're sort of caught a little flat-footed with this petition, trying to sort out,
Yeah,
really want to hear from our residents about what they want.
they want. And, you know, certainly the select boards have used, you know, non-binding ordinances in the past. We did that for the fireworks. Do you want us to prohibit fireworks? Yes or no? As I recall, there were at least a couple of the STR ordinance opponents who suggested we do a non-binding ordinance, which we said at the time we were not willing to do because the yes or no is kind of, you know, it's kind of it's not as straightforward of a question as fireworks, you know, do you yes or no? But given the petition, I mean, maybe that's the best way to do it in order to just get a temperature for the future in terms of what voters want. They did, Bill, they did before your time, I think they did do some non-binding ordinances on the library once or twice. I think the location of the library, you know, whether it was at RES or downtown, and so.
Yeah, non-binding question, non-binding question.
Did I keep saying ordinance? I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My head is fried today.
I don't want anybody to think our ordinances are non-binding.
Non-binding question. Yes, sorry. I'm not a good day for me. Okay.
We can put that on the agenda. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we can put it on the agenda for March 8th. Okay. Next item on the agenda. Are there any amendments to the agenda?
And then I guess there's public input on non-agenda items.
Sorry, told you it was a bad day. Any public input and any non-agenda items, Bill?
Let me look. I don't see any, no.
Okay. And then are there any amendments to the agenda? Hearing none. All right, we'll move on to the consent agenda.
I move the board approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second that.
Okay, any discussion? Okay. Call the question, Michelle,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes,
Denise,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Thank you. All right. Moving on to action items. The first item is act on award of Route 1 wastewater project. And thank you, Nate, for being here. Bill?
Yeah, I'll turn this completely over to Nate. You do have in your materials a summary of the bid, funding mechanisms, and I'll just turn it over to Nate since he's the expert on this.
Well, thank you for having me tonight. This is pretty straightforward, so I'll go through it fairly quickly and then get to a point where you folks can ask any questions you may have. The letter of recommendation I drafted was in your council packet, but in essence, we opened bids for the Route 1 sewer and water extension on February 4th. We received 3 bids from Nitram Excavation, McGee Construction, and Sargent Corporation. The low bid was Nitram Excavation at an amount of $5,846,700. I'm sorry, $5,846,748. And that the bids range from the high bid of Sargent, which was $6,729,450. The breakdown of the Nitram bid, as you can see in the letter, was just about $1.36 million for the water infrastructure elements for that project, which are being funded by Maine Water, and then $4.49 million, which is the sewer infrastructure portion of the project funded by the town. I'll get into the funding sources here in just a minute. I will comment that Maine Water has already confirmed that their portion of the project fits within the amount that they budgeted. So they are, they've committed that they are ready to move forward when the town is ready to move forward. So the water, I'm sorry, the sewer portion of the project is a component of really three main funding sources. You have Clean Water SRF, which is the low interest loan administered by the Maine DEP. We have 4.3 million authorized from them, which is from, I believe, the 2019 funding application we had submitted. You have a $200,000 grant from Northern Border Regional Commission, and you have approximately 500,000. It's a little bit more than that. I got the final balance from Megan recently, remaining in your, what would be your 2000 Route 1 TIF district. So this is the remaining funds in that TIF district would close out that old TIF, and you have the new TIF for the properties in the current extension that will, that I believe is already in place, Bill, but I don't know that. I know that for sure. So those are the funding sources that the town has at its disposal to fund the sewer elements of the project. The project as a whole was under our estimate. We had estimated $6 million combined between water and sewer. So it falls in just under that with the NITRAM low bid. So we're really here today recommending award, but happy to answer any questions you folks may have.
I have a question on the, so it looks like our portion, almost 4.5 million, we have several funding sources. So does that mean we don't take the whole bond amount? So if we take the 500,000 and the 200,000, so we've got 700,000 that comes off the 4.5, and then we end up bonding 3.8 million.
Yeah, let me answer that, Nate. So what we'll end up doing is that we'll take out a bond anticipation note, and so that we'll start, so we have money for the project while the bills come in. And then once we get towards the end of the project and we know how much money we need, then we'll borrow whatever it is that we need. One thing that Nate didn't say, because we haven't got approval yet, is that we do have a pending EDA grant for $2 million that we've applied for this project. So that would be a significant piece of this. So that's normally how we would operate. We would have a bond anticipation note. We would borrow against what, that while we were getting our money for the project. And then at the end, we'll know how much money we need to actually borrow.
Okay.
And Denise, it largely follows the same trajectory as the last sewer extension we did on Route 1, which was in essence from Elwood Avenue to Sea Light Ave. And we had a bonding authorization. We had successfully obtained a couple grants for that. We just ended up borrowing less than your bonding amount. So that hopefully that's the exact same thing that's going to happen here, that people like bonding less than your maximum authorization, obviously. So really at this point, all other approvals.
Michelle had her hand up.
Yeah, I just have a question, Bill. I was hoping you could school me a little bit. So what does it really mean to the taxpayer? So if we are, whether we get the 2 million bond or the 2 million grant, or it's 4 million, is it the users of the system that pay that back versus everybody, which I think it is? And then my other concern is, as you're all well aware, there are so many concerns right now with sewer bills and increases last year. So I'm hoping you can give me a little bit of information on how this would impact those people that are already feeling the crunch.
Sure. So first of all, it's just the users that would be funding this, and those that the system passes by that aren't necessarily connected, because this would go towards the debt service portion of the bill, which is divided up amongst all of the users, plus those residences or businesses that the sewer system passes by. So that's where this would be broken up into. The good news here is that because it's approximately 2 miles of new sewer, it'll be passing, I think it's roughly, I'm going to say 40 established businesses and homes that would be added to that calculation. So we'd be gaining 40 more debt payers, if you will. And then hopefully potentially users too. I mean, I know that there are several that are already interested in hooking up to the system here. And when the other piece here too is that because it's the Route 1 TIF district, this is the new Route 1 TIF district, that will generate about $150,000 a year. And the concept of that TIF was developed so that hopefully that TIF revenue would pay the bond payment for this extension, so that then whatever the difference may be would go to the users, but it's going to be a very small amount actually. So just to give you an example, if we were to borrow the full $4.5 million, we're looking at probably a 1% interest rate at most, because it's through the program. If we did that for 30 years at 1%, which we certainly could do because it's an infrastructure, sewer infrastructure project, the payment would be $174,000. So out of that, $150,000 currently could come out of the Route 1 TIF towards that payment, leaving only $24,000 of additional debt service that would be paid by all of the users, plus the residences and businesses that the sewer pipe goes past. If we were able to get even $1 million grant and only borrowed $3.5 million, a 30-year loan at 1% would only be $135,000. And so we would have enough in the TIF to completely make that debt service payment. So there would be no impact on any of the debt service, those that pay the debt service.
And Michelle, I have, when in putting this on the agenda, Denise and I had a discussion with Bill about this and asked the very same questions. And so I'm glad you asked them here. And plus there are other things going on that we don't want to talk about, you know, publicly in terms of contract negotiations and so forth. But when you figure in some of those other issues too, it even further ameliorates that, you know, that any additional or additional, don't want to say any additional, but it further ameliorates that amount.
Okay. And Bill, can you remind me, so if we get 40 additional, how many will that approximately would that bring us up to?
Nate, do you have the number off the top of your head? I think we have like 680 users, but I'm not sure how many additional we have that pay the debt service fee off the top of my head. I don't know what that number is.
I'll find it before
Okay.
when I'm talking, Michelle, and I'll get it.
Okay, thank you.
But at least 680 plus another 40, and keeping in mind that it's just the debt service that they'd be paying. And you know, as we do retire some debt too, that comes off the books. But you know, I'm very hopeful that we'll get at least $1 million from EDA, and then if we do that, then there is no increase because of this extension, and there actually may be a decrease in the debt service because we'll have more users added on, so there would be a decrease. And as Deborah said, you know, we are working on the other equation, the usage fee. We are working on that too. That I would expect that will be decreased in the next budget year, which starts July 1st.
And I think we're going to have a, you know, we hope to be having an agenda item on some of these wastewater issues in March, right, Bill? We think we'll be in a position to, on some of the kind of longstanding controversy and problems and stuff. So,
yeah, the end of March. That's the second meeting in March, or the first one in April. Nate and I are still diligently working on those.
yeah. So stay tuned. We've got more coming soon.
Thanks.
Bill, you were very close. It's you have 644 total users, which equates to just shy of 1,200 equivalent users. So keeping in mind some businesses are considered more than one user. So that is the amount that will increase by 40 or so, and those that is also the amount that the debt service is spread out across.
And the other thing about this, Michelle, too, that with the sewer line extension and the water line as well upgrades, it just opens up that whole area to further economic development. So, you know, I would expect that we would gain more users once this is in the ground and operational, because then you do have that opportunity. So.
Well, that's a good point, Bill. The number of users we're counting in today terms are those properties that are already developed and who have frontage on Route 1 and who would reasonably expect to get a sewer service. The number of build-out users you might experience from this extension is hard to quantify, but whether that's businesses or subdivisions or whatever your zoning allows, it would presumably in the future be much greater than that 40 number that we're talking about today.
So what's the timing on the contract on the work?
Oh, it's a good question. It's a little bit chicken and egg. So after we open bids and we have a low bid contractor and we start asking them things like, okay, when do you want to get started? They ask us in return, when are you going to authorize me to get started? And that's what I'm here today talking about. But they have indicated they would like to get started as soon as possible. So there's, you know, realistically, I'm just looking at my calendar. Mid-April, May is when any contractor can get started. Road postings are the thing that they have to work around, and they got to get to their pits and their material. But it's as soon as possible. So let's just assume a May 1st start. It's a 240-day contract, so they will be maybe get it all done in 2021, but likely we'll have to take a winter shutdown and finish it in the spring of 2022.
And do you know them, Nitram? I mean, you recommend them as the...
Yep. We've worked with Nitram before. I have no issues with them, no bad past experience. They do a lot of work for Maine Water, and so Maine Water has expressed to me that they were very encouraged to see Nitram be the low bidder on the project. So I don't have any reservations about them that I would articulate here.
I do have a question from the live stream. So I know the answer to this, Nate, I hope, but I'm going to have you answer it as well since you're the expert.
The test.
So the question is, can you update us on the wastewater infiltration problem and how that problem could affect the operation of this sewer extension?
Okay. So this sewer extension will, because it's all new infrastructure, will not be subject to the same sort of infiltration issues that maybe the rest of your existing system has. The direction that this sewer collected is going to go in is south to Rockland. That's a decision we need to make early on in the project when we're sizing pumps and putting the pipes in the ground. You have more than adequate capacity within your interlocal agreement with Rockland to accept this flow. You have more than adequate capacity in your Warrenton Street pump station to handle this flow, which is the main pump station that pumps to the Rockland system. So really, there's nothing about this sewer extension that is going to exacerbate the II problem.
I move the board accept the bid of $5,846,748, with the town share being $4,485,428 from Nitram Excavation and General Contractor, Inc., and authorize the town manager to sign all contract documents related to the execution of the work.
I'll second.
Okay, any other discussion? All right, Jeff,
Yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
Denise,
Yes.
and I vote yes. Thank you, Nate.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And if okay with you, I'm gonna jump off because I have a basketball game to watch, which is a treat in the pandemic times.
Great, enjoy.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening all.
All right, the next item on the agenda is to act on the award of tax acquired property bid. Bill?
Yep, so this, as you recall, was bid out twice. The first time we didn't receive any bids, so we bid it out again and received 2 bids originally. And then a couple of days after the bid opening, one of them withdrew the bid, leaving us with one from Mark Siegenthaler of Camden for $43,250. I did talk with the gentleman on the phone last week just to find out what he planned on doing with the property. And he basically said he will rehabilitate the property and then decide what to do with it after that, whether he rents it out or sells it. He has done several properties, rehabilitated several properties in Camden and Rockland over the last several years. So he's aware of what he's getting into.
I move the board accept the bid of $43,250 from Mark Siegenthaler.
Second,
Any discussion? Michelle?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Denise?
yes.
And I vote yes. By the way, Mark is, I think Mark is active on some committees in Camden, and I know we've met him maybe on in relation to Midco Solid Waste, but it might have been before you were on there, Denise. And it's Siegenthaler. Okay, the next item on the agenda is act on votes necessary for financing public works truck purchase. Bill?
Yeah, so if you recall, the board had approved the purchase of a Western Star 4700 SF plow truck with associated equipment a couple of meetings ago from Daigle and Houghton, and we've lined up the financing through Androscoggin Bank for this lease purchase. They came in with the lowest rate of 1.89% for a 7-year term. And so now the board needs to have that 5-paragraph motion read into the record so that we can get the financing in place for the truck and the equipment. And if this is approved tonight, Deborah, there is the documents for you that need to be signed. They're on Diane's desk. If you could do that before, say, Wednesday afternoon, that'd be great.
So Bill, can you help us on number 4 of our motion? How we know the answer to that?
The language is drafted by our bond counsel, and it has to be written in that manner so that.
So is that what that's saying is if the term for the loan is 7 years,
Correct.
the truck is going to be good for at least whatever, I can't do the math, but less than 7 years, right?
Right. It's going to be the plan with this truck is that it'll be 12 to 14 years.
Okay. Okay.
So basically what the language is saying is that we don't want to obviously borrow money.
No, I understand the purpose of it, but
Yeah.
I didn't feel like we had the factual foundation to make that finding.
Sure.
But if you tell me it's 12 to 14 years, I can.
Yes, that's the plan.
Okay. I move that a capital acquisition project consisting of the lease of a public works truck with equipment is hereby approved. And 2, that the financing for the project in the principal amount of $202,730 is awarded to Androscoggin Bank at an interest rate of 1.89%. And 3, that the town manager is hereby authorized to execute a lease purchase agreement for the project and all other documents reasonably necessary to accomplish the purpose of this vote in his capacity as town manager or in his capacity as town treasurer, as the documents may require. And 4, that the select board hereby confirms its determination that the term of the lease does not exceed 120% of the economic life of the project. And 5, that said lease is hereby designated a bank qualified tax exempt obligation of the town for the 2021 calendar year under the provisions of section 265B3 of the Internal Revenue Code of 1986 as amended.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All right, Michelle?
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Denise?
Yes.
And I vote yes. I'll be over tomorrow to sign it.
Great.
Okay. The next item is to act on comprehensive plan committee bylaws.
So these were approved by the Comprehensive Plan Committee at their last meeting. And it does include the language, of course, that the select board is requiring in all the different bylaws for committees. And this has the updated citizen representative number in the bylaws as well.
That we approved at the last meeting.
Yes. Yep.
Welcome, Mark.
Good evening.
We're on the comprehensive plan bylaws, Mark.
I move the
Thank
board.
you.
Hang on, Jeff?
Yeah, I'll move the board approve the comp plan committee bylaws as presented.
Denise, would you like to second?
I'd love to second. I'll second that.
Mark had his, or Jeff had his hand up, so. All right, any discussion? Do you have any questions, Mark?
No, I'm good. I'll play catch up.
Okay. Michelle,
Yes.
Jeff,
Yes,
Denise,
Yes,
Mark.
Yes, good.
Okay, and I vote yes. Yeah, Mark, those bylaws, as you know, we're just mainly changing the composition as we discussed at the last meeting, so.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to make sure I wasn't on mute. Sorry. Thank you.
Okay, we do not have any discussion items on the agenda. We do have select board liaison reports, and then after that, we'll go into an executive session. So who would like to go first on the liaison reports? Jeff?
keep this short. Harbor Committee met last Thursday, the 18th. I was on a different call for another reason and didn't catch the front end of it. Last end of it was the Harbor Master's report. That committee meets monthly. The Comp Plan Committee met on Tuesday the 9th and has another meeting scheduled for tomorrow, the 23rd. That committee meets twice a month. Lots of reading, homework, and review is currently going on by all members in that committee. That's it.
I'll go next.
Okay, Denise?
So Parks Committee met and talked about the library landscaping project. Bill was on that call, so we were able to get some meeting of the minds on the work that's already been done and then the work that'll be done in the spring when the timing allows. And Anna Remsen of Seasons Down East has been very helpful in helping us sort of work on the design of the garden beds and in some ways perhaps save the town some money on that contract. Another exciting thing the Parks Committee is working on is a pamphlet for each of the town parks. And Sue Kalk and her husband, Jeff Kalk, have come up with a great prototype of this brochure with just a quick short description of each of the parks and sort of their unique features. And then we'll have some funding to make copies of those brochures, have them available, you know, at B&Bs, hotels, Harbor Master's office, just around town. So people can explore more of what's in Rockport than just Marine Park, for instance. And then the other thing sort of notable for the Parks Committee is they had in their original plan for next year's budget was some additional signage, but have at least asked the Budget Committee to consider park benches instead, looking at Memorial Park and what a beautiful area that really has become so quickly after the library construction project, feeling that people would enjoy having more places to sit. So that's at least in the request and in the works. And I guess I want to just make a huge shout out to Five Builders and Architects for the extra donation of the sod for Memorial Park, because that's what has really allowed that park to look as finished as it does. And then of course we've had two anonymous donors, and then Seasons Down East has donated at cost materials to us. The Opera House Committee met, working on the website and marketing, taking advantage of this sort of lull in the use of the Opera House to really improve our game in attract more users for the Opera House so it can be a better source of revenue for the town, or an improved source of revenue for the town. as well as a community gathering space. It's not just about the money. It's about getting people together and enjoying being together. The ORC has almost signed off on a sign ordinance that'll be on the June ballot. And that addresses a number of issues with our current sign ordinance and is generally not a huge game changer. It fixes some things and just moves us forward in a better way on that. And then some additional cleanup in the land use ordinance, things that didn't quite get done correctly last go around that'll just be fixed. And then Legacy Rockport met this afternoon and is working on a number of things. Lime kiln, we should have a report at our next meeting, sort of with the stonemasons' advice on what needs to be done for those lime kilns for sort of long-term preservation. That's enough on that. We've also, Hanani Wallace from the Parks and Beautification Committee presented some information on a program called Museums in the Streets, which is building on some of the historic markers we see in town, which, some of them have been faded and are no longer really legible. Sort of exciting to think about all the areas in Rockport. We could put some markers, Simonton Corner, Rockville Chapel, some of the information about West Rockport. So I think there'll be a nice collaboration between Legacy Rockport, Parks and Beautification, and then, just some longtime Rockport residents who are excited about this, talk about getting some of the high school kids involved in helping do the research and really have us sort of relearn or learn for the first time for a lot of us, the amazing history of Rockport. Lastly, Legacy Rockport has prepared a video of really its work, but it really is a video that captures so much of Rockport's history. And Jeff Parker put that together for Legacy Rockport and for the town. And we're starting to strategize about showing opportunities, whether we get the Shotwell Drive-In to show the video before one of their feature films. Hopefully we'll be at a point soon where we could all gather as a community and watch that video together as well. So lots of good stuff going on.
And it's a great video. Someone shared that with us last week or so. It's a great video. Jeff did a great job with that.
Yeah.
That's a great idea.
Denise, did you?
We'll do that. Yeah. Go ahead, Mark.
I was just wondering, I don't know whether I missed on the parks, there was talk about following up on the master plan for all of the town parks. And you may have touched on that, I may have missed it, but they are going to try to gather a plan, if you will, so that each park has its own little set of priorities, and then they can start picking away at them. So
good, yeah.
So Michelle, you're next with the report.
Yeah, so Jeff talked about comprehensive committee. Planning board is meeting this coming Thursday, and we have not had any meetings, follow-up meetings for the West Rockport Fire Station. So that's my update.
So Mark, do you have anything further to add?
I found my parks notes, but I have yet to find any conservation notes. So next.
Okay. So Midco Solid Waste was supposed to have a meeting tomorrow, but it's been canceled because we didn't have any actionable items, which I guess that's a good thing. Things are going so well with Midco Solid Waste, thanks to our new manager there, Michael Martinez, who's been great. I've been doing a ton of work on this broadband group, and even spent the weekend, 2 days this weekend, creating a website for the group. And so I just can't even begin to go through everything that's happening there. We've had presentations before the Camden Rotary. Rockland has asked for a presentation before the Rockland Rotary. I think I reported in the past that Rockland has signed up, South Thomaston has signed up. I've talked, Denise has been joining me on some phone calls recently. We've been talking to Danny Sullivan, who is the head of the Down East Broadband Utility. We talked to Eaton Peabody, the firm that has done the work on the utilities on the regional utility districts for Down East Broadband, and also for the Katahdin project. And we have some discussions with Pioneer Broadband tomorrow, I think, as I recall. So anyway, we've just been, we've been doing, it's been a full-time job lately, which has got to change. But anyway, with that, I think that's enough said for the moment. Any other committee reports? All right, then with that, we need to go into executive session. Evan is here to join us. So if somebody would like to make that motion, please.
Move the board convene an executive session pursuant to 1 MRS 406-6E to discuss a legal matter.
I'll second that.
All right, Jeff,
Yes.
Michelle,
Yes.
Denise,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
and I vote yes. So we will go into executive session and then we'll come back out afterwards.
Yep, just give us a minute to get off the air.